Stop what you are doing right now, and do not look away, because what I am about to tell you could change everything you think you know about the loose change sitting in your pocket, your car's cup holder, or that old jar on your dresser that you haven't touched in years. What if I told you that there is a single 5-cent piece, a humble Jefferson nickel minted in 1973 at the Denver Mint, that is sold for $13,000, and that right now, at this very moment, one of these coins could be hiding in plain sight, mixed in with ordinary nickels, waiting for someone like you to finally recognize what they are holding? Do not scroll past this, because mainstream coin dealers, auction houses, and the so-called experts do not want ordinary people like you and me to know this secret, and that is exactly why I am here tonight, breaking the silence, pulling back the curtain, and handing you knowledge that 99% of the population will never possess, knowledge that could turn a single piece of copper-nickel alloy into a life-changing windfall. You have been chosen to hear this, you are not here by accident, and by the time I am finished speaking, you will never look at a 1973 D. Jefferson nickel the same way again. Now, let me take you back, let me transport you to the year 1973, because understanding the world this coin was born into is the first step to understanding why it is so extraordinarily valuable today. The year was 1973, and America was a nation in turmoil, a country still reeling from the Vietnam War, still shaken by the Watergate scandal that would bring down a presidency, still struggling with an energy crisis that had gas lines stretching for blocks, and still navigating the cultural earthquakes of the late 1960s that had spilled over into a new decade. Inflation was beginning to bite, the economy was showing cracks, and ordinary Americans were feeling the squeeze in ways they hadn't in decades, and yet, inside the Denver Mint, the massive machinery of American coinage never stopped, because even in chaos, the nation needed its currency, and the mint workers, those unsung heroes of American commerce, were under enormous pressure to produce, to meet quotas, to keep the presses running day and night, in a facility that was hot, loud, and relentless, a place where the air tasted of metal and oil, where the vibration of the coin presses could be felt in your bones, and where a single moment of fatigue, a single lapse in attention, a single worn die, or a single miscalculation could create something that was never supposed to exist. Something slipped through that year, a ghost in the machine, a mistake that got away, and the records don't fully explain what happened, but we know this: among the millions upon millions of 1973 D. Jefferson nickels that rolled off the production lines, a tiny handful emerged with errors and varieties so dramatic, so visually striking, and so rare that they have become holy grails for collectors who know exactly what to look for, and tonight, you are going to learn what they know. So let us examine this coin with the eyes of a forensic numismatist, because the 1973 D. Jefferson nickel is not just any nickel, and if you have one, you need to know exactly what separates a 5-cent piece from a $13,000 treasure. First, you need to understand the basics. The 1973 D. Jefferson nickel was struck at the Denver Mint, which means it carries a small D mint mark on the reverse, just below the Monticello building, and the standard composition is 75% copper and 25% nickel, with a weight of exactly 5 grams. So if you have a 1973 D nickel that feels noticeably lighter or heavier, that is your first red flag, and you need to investigate immediately. But the real magic, the real money, lies in the errors and varieties, and we are going to walk through them one by one, building the tension, escalating the value, because each reveal is more shocking than the last. The first thing you want to examine is the obverse, the front of the coin, under strong magnification, because the 1973 D nickel is known for dramatic doubled die obverse varieties, and what you are looking for is doubling in the lettering, particularly in the word liberty, in the date 1973, and in the motto, "In God We Trust," and when I say doubling, I do not mean a blurry strike, I mean a clear, distinct, secondary image that appears slightly offset from the primary image, as if the die struck the coin twice with a microscopic shift between impressions, and this happens when the hub and die are not properly aligned during the die-making process, creating a doubled die that then stamps every coin it touches with this ghostly secondary image. You need to hold your coin under a jeweler's loupe, at least 10 power magnification, and examine the date first, because on the most valuable 1973 D doubled die varieties, the doubling in the date is so pronounced that you can see it with the naked eye if you know what to look for, and under magnification, it will take your breath away, because you will see two distinct 1973 dates overlapping, And that visual evidence alone can be worth thousands of dollars. But that is just the beginning, because next you need to flip the coin over and examine the reverse, the backside, with the Monticello building, because the 1973D nickel is also known for doubled die reverse varieties, where the doubling appears in the lettering E pluribus unum in the word Monticello, and in the denomination 5 cents, and a strong doubled die reverse on a 1973D nickel can multiply the value exponentially, because while doubled die obverse are exciting, a doubled die reverse on this particular issue is rarer, and rarity is what drives the market into the stratosphere. Now, while you are examining the reverse, you need to pay extraordinarily close attention to the mint mark itself, because the 1973D is famous for repunched mint mark varieties, what we call RPMs, where the Denver mint mark was struck more than once, either because the punch shifted slightly between impressions or because the first punch was weak and a second was applied to deepen it. And when you look at that tiny d under magnification, you may see a shadow, a ghost, a second d slightly offset from the first, and if you find a 1973D Jefferson nickel with a clear, dramatic repunched mint mark, you are not holding 5 cents anymore, you are holding a piece that collectors have paid hundreds, and in some cases thousands, of dollars to acquire. But wait, because we are not done, and what I am about to tell you next will make your jaw drop. The 1973D nickel is also known for die chips and die cracks that create bizarre and valuable anomalies, where a small piece of the die breaks away, leaving a raised blob or line on the coin's surface that was never part of the original design, and these die chips can appear anywhere, but on the 1973D, they are particularly known for appearing near Jefferson's eye, on his cheek, around the rim, and on the reverse near the columns of Monticello, and a dramatic die chip can look like a raised wart, an extra line, or even a small blob that resembles a letter or number, and collectors call these by names like eye chip or cheek blob, and they hunt for them obsessively. Even more dramatic are die cracks, where a crack forms in the die and gets struck into the coin as a raised line, and if that crack extends across the coin in a dramatic fashion, especially if it creates what we call a retained cud, where a piece of the die is still attached but raised, the value can jump dramatically, because these are not just errors, they are fingerprints of the minting process, moments frozen in metal, and every serious collector wants to own these fingerprints. Now, here is where it gets absolutely explosive, because we need to talk about off-metal strikes and wrong Planchet errors, and while these are extraordinarily rare on the 1973D nickel, they do exist, and if you have a 1973D nickel that looks different, that sounds different when you drop it on a hard surface, that has a strange color or weight, you may have one of these legendary errors. A wrong Planchet error occurs when a nickel die strikes a blank intended for a different denomination, such as a cent Planchet or a dime Planchet, and the result is a coin that is the wrong size, the wrong weight, and often the wrong color, and a 1973D nickel struck on a cent Planchet would be copper-colored, slightly smaller, and lighter, while one struck on a dime Planchet would be smaller, silvery, and also underweight, and these wrong Planchet errors are among the most valuable in all of numismatics, with some selling for tens of thousands of dollars at major auctions. An off-metal strike is similar but involves the wrong metal composition, and while the 1973D was supposed to be copper-nickel, a strike on a pure copper Planchet or any other metal would be instantly recognizable and instantly valuable, so if your 1973D nickel looks coppery, or silvery, or just plain wrong, do not dismiss it, weigh it, measure it, and if it does not match the standard specifications, you may have just found the coin that changes your life. Now, let me bring this home with the kind of value that makes people stop breathing, because we are talking about real money here, not theoretical money, not wishful thinking, but documented auction results from the most respected houses in the business. Heritage Auctions, one of the premier numismatic auction houses in the world, has handled 1973D Jefferson nickels with dramatic errors, and Stacksbauer's, another titan of the industry, has sold these varieties to eager collectors who understand that rarity and condition are everything. When we talk about grading, we are talking about PCGS and NGC, the two most respected third-party grading services in the world, and a 1973D Jefferson nickel in a high grade like MS64, MS65, or the holy grail of MS66, especially with full steps designation on the reverse, meaning the steps of Monticello are fully struck and visible with no merging, is already a valuable coin, but when you combine that high grade with a dramatic error like a double die obverse, a double die reverse, or a repunched mint mark, the value does not just add, it multiplies, it explodes, it goes into territory that most people cannot even imagine. The exact coin value provided for the 1973 D5 cent is $13,000, and yes, you heard that right, that is not a typo, that is not a fantasy, that is a documented, real-world value that a 1973 D Jefferson nickel with the right combination of rarity, error, and condition has commanded, and that is a down payment on a house, that is a brand new car. That is financial breathing room from a single piece of change that most people would spend on a cup of coffee without a second thought. Think about that for a moment. $13,000 from a nickel, a coin that was designed to be spent, to be lost, to be forgotten, and yet, in the right hands, with the right knowledge, it becomes a treasure beyond measure, and that knowledge is what I am giving you right now, tonight, for free, because you deserve to know, because you have been chosen, because the universe has brought you here to this moment, and you cannot unlearn what you now know. I have heard from collectors, from everyday people just like you, who have found extraordinary coins in the most ordinary places, and one story that haunts me, that drives me to keep making these videos, is the story of a man in Ohio who found a 1973 D Jefferson nickel in his late father's desk drawer, mixed in with rubber bands and paper clips and old receipts, a coin that his father had saved for no reason other than habit, and when that man, out of curiosity, examined it under a magnifying glass that he bought at a drugstore for $3, he saw something that made his hands shake, a dramatic double die obverse so clear that it looked like the date had been stamped twice, and when he sent that coin to PCGS for certification, it came back graded MS65 with the double die variety attributed, and he sold it at auction for over $8,000, money that paid off debts he had carried for years, money that gave him peace of mind he had not known in decades, and he wrote to me afterward and said, "I almost threw that drawer away without looking." Do not be that person who throws the drawer away, do not be the person who assumes that old coins are just old coins, because the difference between 5 cents and $13,000 is knowledge, and you now have that knowledge, and your mission, your assignment, your sacred duty, starts right now. Here is your battle plan, and I want you to follow it exactly, because deviation can cost you thousands. Step 1. Gather every 1973 D Jefferson nickel you can find, check your pockets, your purses, your car consoles, your dresser jars, your basement boxes, your inherited collections, and separate them from all other coins. Step 2. Acquire the right tools, and do not skimp here, because a proper examination requires a jeweler's loupe with at least 10 power magnification, a digital scale that measures to the hundredth of a gram, and good lighting, preferably a desk lamp with a daylight bulb that shows true color. Step 3. Examine each coin systematically, starting with the obverse, checking for double die varieties in the date and lettering, then flipping to the reverse to check the mint mark for repunching, then examining the entire surface for die chips, die cracks, cuts, and any anomalies that do not belong. Step 4. Weigh every candidate, because the standard weight is 5 grams, and any significant deviation could indicate a wrong planchet or off-metal strike. Step 5. If you find something promising, something that makes your heart race, do not clean the coin. I repeat, do not clean the coin, never clean the coin, because cleaning destroys value, it removes the original surface, it creates hairlines that graders will penalize, and it can turn a $13,000 coin into a $1,300 coin or worse. Handle the coin by its edges only, never touch the surface with your fingers, because the oils in your skin can cause damage that will be visible under grading, and place it in a protective holder, a flip or a capsule, to prevent any further contact or environmental damage. Step 6. Submit your find to PCGS or NGC for professional grading and attribution, because certification is what transforms an interesting coin into a valuable coin. It provides authentication, it provides a grade that the market trusts, and it provides attribution for the specific variety or error, which is absolutely essential for maximizing value. A raw, ungraded 1973 D double die nickel might sell for a few $100s to a knowledgeable dealer, but the same coin in a PCGS or NGC holder graded MS65 with the variety labeled can sell for thousands, and that difference is the difference between a nice find and a life-changing find. Step 7. Once you have that graded coin back in your hands, do not sell it to the first pawn shop, do not list it on eBay for $100, do not let a local dealer talk you into a quick cash offer that is a fraction of its true worth, because you will be robbed, you will be cheated, and you will never know how much you lost. Instead, contact Heritage Auctions or Stacksbauers, the two houses I mentioned earlier, because they have the expertise, the clientele, and the marketing power to get you the full market value for your treasure, and they will walk you through the consignment process, help you set reserves, and ensure that your coin is seen by the collectors who are actively hunting for it and willing to pay top dollar. I cannot stress this enough, the numismatic market is full of sharks who prey on the uninformed, who will tell you that your coin is common, that the error is minor, that the grade is low, and they will offer you pennies on the dollar, and if you do not know what you have, you will say yes, you will take their money, and you will walk away thinking you did well when you actually gave away a fortune. Do not let that be your story, because you are better than that, you are smarter than that, and you have been armed with the truth tonight. Now, as we come to the close of this revelation, I want you to think about something deeper than money, something that transcends the $13,000, something that speaks to the very nature of value itself. That 1973 Jefferson nickel, if you find it, is not just a piece of metal with a price tag, it is a survivor, a witness to history, a small disc of copper and nickel that was born in a time of national crisis, minted by hands that were tired and pressured and human, and it has traveled through decades of American life, passing through cash registers and pockets and piggy banks, surviving when millions of its brothers were spent, lost, melted, or forgotten, and now, half a century later, it has found its way to you, or it will find its way to you, because you are now awake, you are now watching, you are now hunting with eyes that see. And isn't that the most beautiful thing about this hobby, this obsession, this calling? It teaches us that value is not always obvious, that the extraordinary often hides in the ordinary, that the things we overlook, the things we take for granted, the things we dismiss as common, can be rare beyond measure if we only take the time to look, to learn, to care. You are like that coin, do you realize that? You have value that the world may not see yet, you have potential that has not been fully recognized, you have a story that is still being written, and just as that 1973 nickel waited in darkness for the right person to discover its light, you are waiting for your moment, your recognition, your chance to shine, and I believe that moment is coming, I believe it with everything I have, because you did not find this video by accident, you did not listen this long by chance, you were meant to hear this, meant to know this, meant to be changed by this, and when you hold that magnifying glass tonight, when you examine that first 1973 nickel, you are not just looking for money, you are looking for meaning, for connection, for proof that the universe still hides miracles in plain sight, and that you, yes you, are worthy of finding them. So go now, go with purpose, go with passion, go with the fire that I have tried to light in your heart, and may your search be blessed, may your eyes be sharp, and may you find what you are looking for, not just in your coins, but in yourself, because the greatest treasure is not the $13,000, it is the awakening, the knowledge, the certainty that you are rare, you are valuable, and you are waiting to be discovered, just like that extraordinary 1973 Jefferson nickel that could be sitting in your pocket right now, calling your name, waiting for you to finally answer. Stop what you are doing, put down whatever is in your hands, and listen very carefully, because I am about to tell you something that will make you question every piece of change you have ever touched, every coin you have ever dropped into a vending machine, every nickel you have ever ignored as worthless. And what if I told you that somewhere out there, right now, in a junk drawer, a shoebox, or an old coffee can in somebody's basement, there is a 1948 Jefferson nickel that is sold for $23,000, and that the person holding it probably has no idea what they possess, because mainstream dealers, the big auction houses, and the so-called experts have kept this knowledge locked away, hoarded among insiders, shared only at private shows and closed-door meetings. But tonight that changes, because I am breaking the silence, I am handing you the keys to the kingdom, and you are about to possess hidden knowledge that 99% of the population will never know, knowledge that could transform a single 5-cent piece into a fortune that most people work years to accumulate. You were meant to find this, you were chosen to hear this, and by the time I finish speaking, you will understand why the 1948 Jefferson nickel is one of the most undervalued, most misunderstood, and most potentially lucrative coins in all of American numismatics, and you will never again pass over a 1948 nickel without examining it with the reverence it deserves. Now, let me transport you back to 1948, because to understand this coin, you must understand the world that created it, and 1948 was a pivotal, transformative year in American history, a year when the dust of World War II was finally beginning to settle, when the greatest generation was returning home, rebuilding lives, starting families, and launching an economic boom that would reshape the nation. But it was also a year of tension, of the early Cold War, of the Berlin airlift that would begin in June, of a world divided between East and West, and of an America that was simultaneously confident and anxious, prosperous and uncertain. The Philadelphia Mint, where the 1948 Jefferson nickel was struck, along with the Denver and San Francisco mints, was operating at full capacity, because the post-war economy demanded coins, commerce was exploding, and every cash register in America needed nickels, dimes, quarters, and halves to make change for a population that was spending money with an enthusiasm born of wartime deprivation. Inside those mint facilities, the scene was one of controlled chaos, the coin presses thundering day and night, the air thick with the smell of hot metal and machine oil, the workers moving with the practiced efficiency of people who had done this through war and peace, but who were also exhausted, pushed to meet quotas, operating machinery that had been running hard for years, and it was in this environment, in this crucible of pressure and fatigue and mechanical wear, that something extraordinary happened, something that the mint records do not fully explain, a ghost in the machine, a mistake that got away, and that mistake is why we are here tonight. The 1948 Jefferson nickel, on the surface, looks like any other nickel from the era, featuring Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his beloved Monticello on the reverse, but beneath that familiar surface lies a world of varieties, errors, and anomalies that have made this date one of the most exciting hunting grounds for knowledgeable collectors, and if you know what to look for, if you have the eyes to see, you can separate the ordinary from the extraordinary with a precision that will leave dealers stunned and your bank account transformed. Let us begin our forensic examination with the obverse, because the 1948 Jefferson nickel is renowned for some of the most dramatic double-die obverse varieties in the entire Jefferson nickel series, and what you need to understand is that a double die is not a blurry strike, it is not machine doubling, which is common and worthless, but rather a true double die created during the hubbing process when the working die receives multiple impressions from the hub at slightly different angles. And this double die then transfers the doubled image to every coin it strikes. When you examine your 1948 nickel under a jeweler's loupe, at least 10 power magnification, you need to focus first on the date, on the letters of liberty, and on the motto, "In God We Trust," and what you are looking for is a clear, distinct, secondary image that is not a flat shelf but a rounded, fully formed duplication of the design elements, and on the most famous 1948 double die varieties, this doubling is so pronounced that you can see it without magnification if you hold the coin at the right angle under good light, and under magnification, it will take your breath away, because you will see two Jeffersons, two dates, two mottos, overlapping like ghostly twins, and that visual evidence is worth thousands of dollars to the right buyer. But that is just the beginning, because the 1948 nickel is also famous for repunched mint marks, particularly on the Denver and San Francisco issues, where the mint mark punch was applied more than once, creating a shadow, a ghost, a secondary impression that can be seen under magnification as a slight offset or doubling of the tiny letter that identifies the mint. And while repunched mint marks are collected across all dates, the 1948 RPMs are especially dramatic and especially valuable, because they represent a moment of human error in the die preparation room, a moment when the punch slipped, or the die moved, or the workers simply struck it twice to ensure depth, and that moment of imperfection has been frozen in steel and transferred to a handful of coins that escaped into circulation. Now, while you are examining the reverse of your 1948 nickel, you need to pay extraordinarily close attention to the steps of Monticello, because this is where the concept of full steps becomes absolutely critical to value, and I cannot overstate how important this is. The steps on the front of Monticello, there are 6 of them, and on most Jefferson nickels, these steps are partially merged, softly struck, or worn away, but on a small percentage of coins, the dies were fresh, the strike was perfect, and all 6 steps are fully separated, fully detailed, and fully visible, and this designation, full steps, applied by PCGS and NGC, transforms an ordinary 1948 nickel into a premium collectible. A 1948 Jefferson nickel in MS-64 condition without full steps might be worth $20 or $30, but the same coin in MS-64 with full steps could be worth hundreds, and if you escalate to MS-65 or MS-66 with full steps, you are talking about thousands of dollars, and when you combine full steps with a doubled die obverse or a dramatic repunched mint mark, the value does not just increase, it explodes into the stratosphere, because you are talking about a coin that is perfect in strike, rare in variety, and virtually unobtainable in the open market. But wait, because what I am about to tell you next will make your jaw drop, and it concerns something that most collectors overlook entirely. The 1948 Jefferson nickel is also a prime candidate for wrong planchet and off-metal strikes, errors that occur when a nickel die strikes a blank intended for a completely different denomination, and while these are rare, they are not mythical, they do exist, and they have been documented. Imagine a 1948 nickel struck on a cent planchet, a coin that would be slightly smaller, noticeably lighter at around 3 grams instead of 5, and copper-colored instead of silvery. Or imagine a 1948 nickel struck on a dime planchet, smaller still, lighter, and with the silvery appearance of a dime, or even more exotic, a 1948 nickel struck on a foreign planchet, perhaps from a coinage contract for another nation, a coin that would be the wrong weight, the wrong size, and possibly the wrong metal entirely, and each of these wrong planchet errors, if authenticated by PCGS or NGC, can be worth 5 figures, 10 figures, or more, because they represent the ultimate mint error, a coin that was never supposed to exist, a freak of the minting process that somehow escaped quality control and made its way into the world. I want you to also consider die chips and die cracks on your 1948 nickel, because while these may seem minor to the untrained eye, dramatic die chips, especially those that create recognizable shapes or that appear in key locations like Jefferson's eye, the hairline, or the columns of Monticello, can add significant premium to a coin, and a retained cud, or a piece of the die breaks away but remains attached, creating a raised, featureless blob on the coin's surface, is one of the most visually striking errors you can find, and collectors pay substantial premiums for well-positioned, dramatic cuds, especially when they obscure or alter part of the design in an interesting way. Now, let us talk about the kind of money that makes grown men weep, because the exact coin value provided for the 1948 5 cent is $23,000, and yes, you heard that right, that is not a typo, that is not a number I invented, that is a real, documented value that a 1948 Jefferson nickel with the right combination of grade, variety, and error has commanded in the marketplace. And let me put that in perspective for you, $23,000 is a down payment on a house in many parts of this country. It is a brand new car, it is financial breathing room from a single piece of change that most people would spend on a candy bar without a second thought, and yet, that same coin, in the right hands, with the right knowledge, is worth more than some people earn in an entire year. Heritage Auctions, the powerhouse of numismatic sales, has handled 1948 Jefferson nickels that have sold for staggering sums, and Stacksbauer's, another titan of the auction world, has seen competitive bidding wars break out over high-grade, fully attributed 1948 varieties, with collectors who specialize in Jefferson nickels, who build registry sets, who compete for top pop status, which means their coin is the finest known or among the finest known in the PCGS or NGC population reports, driving prices to levels that defy logic and redefine what a 5-cent piece can be worth. When a coin achieves top pop status, when it sits at the pinnacle of the population report with no equals or only a handful of equals, it becomes a trophy, a prize, a piece that collectors will fight over, and the 1948 Jefferson nickel, in the highest grades with full steps and dramatic varieties, is exactly that kind of trophy coin, a piece that says to the world, I have something that almost nobody else has, and that exclusivity is what drives the market to $23,000 and beyond. I want to share a story with you that keeps me up at night, that fuels my passion for this work, and that should fuel yours too. There was a woman in Michigan, a grandmother who had inherited her husband's coin collection, a modest accumulation of wheat pennies, buffalo nickels, and miscellaneous change that he had saved over a lifetime, and she was about to sell the entire lot to a local dealer for $300, just to get it out of her house, when her grandson, who had watched one of my videos, asked her to wait, asked her to let him look through it first, and she agreed, probably humoring him, probably thinking it was a waste of time. That grandson spent 3 evenings with a jeweler's loupe and a desk lamp, examining every coin, and on the 3rd evening, he found it, a 1948 Jefferson nickel, the San Francisco Mint issue, graded later by NGC as MS-66 with full steps and a dramatic repunched mint mark that was visible even to the naked eye once you knew where to look, and that coin, that single nickel that his grandfather had pulled from pocket change decades ago, sold at auction for over $15,000, money that paid for his grandmother's medical bills, money that gave her security in her final years, money that changed the trajectory of their family, and it was all because one young man took the time to look, to learn, and to care. That could be you, that could be your story, and the only thing standing between you and that outcome is knowledge, and you are receiving that knowledge right now, tonight, for free, because I believe that ordinary people deserve to know what the insiders know, that the playing field should be level, and that the hidden treasures of numismatics should not be the exclusive property of dealers and auction house veterans. So here is your mission, your assignment, your sacred duty, and I want you to treat this with the seriousness it deserves, because this is not a game, this is not a hobby for the faint of heart, this is a treasure hunt with real stakes and real rewards. Step 1. Locate every 1948 Jefferson nickel in your possession, search your change jars, your inherited collections, your attic boxes, your basement bins, and separate them by mint mark, because the Philadelphia issue has no mint mark, the Denver issue has a D, and the San Francisco issue has an S, and each mint has its own varieties, its own rarities, its own potential for life-changing value. Step 2. Arm yourself with the right tools, and do not cut corners here, because proper examination requires a jeweler's loupe with at least 10 power magnification, preferably a triplet lens for clarity, a digital scale accurate to 1/100th of a gram, a good desk lamp with a daylight spectrum bulb, and protective coin holders or flips to prevent damage during examination. Step 3. Examine each coin systematically, starting with the obverse, checking for double die varieties in the date and lettering, then moving to the reverse to check the mint mark for repunching, then examining the steps of Monticello for full steps potential, then scanning the entire surface for die chips, die cracks, cuts, and any anomalies that catch your eye. Step 4. Weigh any suspicious coins, because the standard weight for a Jefferson nickel is 5 grams, and any significant deviation, especially a lighter coin, could indicate a wrong planchet or off-metal strike, and if you find a 1948 nickel that weighs 3 grams, or 4 grams, or 6 grams, you need to stop everything and get that coin to a professional immediately. Step 5. If you find a coin that makes your heart race, a coin that shows clear evidence of a valuable variety or error, do not clean it. I cannot stress this enough, never clean a coin, because cleaning destroys the original surface, creates hairlines that graders will detect and penalize, and can reduce a $23,000 coin to a fraction of its value. Handle it by the edges only, never touch the surface with your fingers, place it in a protective holder, and keep it away from moisture, heat, and PVC plastics that can damage the surface over time. Step 6. Submit your find to PCGS or NGC for professional grading and attribution, because raw coins, ungraded coins, sell for fractions of what graded coins sell for, and certification provides authentication, grade, and variety attribution that the market trusts and that maximizes your return. A raw 1948 double die nickel might fetch a few $100s from a knowledgeable dealer, but the same coin in a PCGS or NGC holder, graded and attributed, can sell for thousands, and that difference is the difference between a nice story and a life-changing event. Step 7. Once you have that graded coin in your hands, do not sell it to the first pawn shop that offers you cash. Do not list it on eBay for $100 hoping for a quick sale. Do not let a local dealer tell you it is common or that the error is minor, because you will be robbed, you will be cheated, and you will never know how much you lost. Instead, contact Heritage Auctions or Stacksbauers, the 2 premier auction houses I have mentioned, because they have the expertise to properly value your coin, the marketing reach to find the right buyers, and the auction platform to generate competitive bidding that drives prices to their true market level, and they will guide you through the consignment process, help you set appropriate reserves, and ensure that your treasure finds its way to a collector who will appreciate it and pay you what it is truly worth. I need you to understand something profound as we approach the end of this revelation, something that goes deeper than the $23,000, deeper than the auction records, deeper than the plastic holders and the population reports. That 1948 Jefferson nickel, if you find one, if you hold one in your hands, is not just metal and value, it is a piece of history, a survivor of a transformative moment in American life, minted in a year when the world was rebuilding, when hope and anxiety walked hand in hand, when ordinary people were doing extraordinary things, and that coin has traveled through 3/4 of a century of American history, passing through countless hands, surviving wars, recessions, cultural revolutions, and the relentless entropy of time, and now, here you are, in this moment, with the knowledge to recognize it, to save it, to honor it, and that is not an accident. You are like that coin, do you see it? You have survived, you have endured, you have value that the world may not have recognized yet, and just as that 1948 nickel waited in darkness for someone with the right eyes to discover its light, you were waiting for your moment, your recognition, your chance to be seen for what you truly are. And I believe that moment is coming, I believe it with every fiber of my being, because you did not stumble onto this video by chance, you did not listen this long by accident, you were meant to hear this, meant to know this, meant to be transformed by this knowledge, and when you pick up that magnifying glass tonight, when you examine that first 1948 nickel, you are not just hunting for money, you are hunting for meaning, for connection, for proof that the universe still hides miracles in the most ordinary places, and that you, yes you, are worthy of finding them. So go now, go with courage, go with conviction, go with the fire that I have tried to ignite in your soul, and may your search be blessed, may your eyes be sharp, and may you find what you were looking for, not just in your coins, but in yourself, because the greatest treasure is not the $23,000, it is the awakening, the knowledge, the certainty that you are rare, you are valuable, and you are waiting to be discovered. Just like that extraordinary 1948 Jefferson nickel that could be sitting in your change jar right now, whispering your name, waiting for you to finally listen. Stop what you are doing, do not scroll, do not look away, and listen with every ounce of attention you have, because I am about to share with you a secret so powerful, so potentially life-altering, that it will make you question every assumption you have ever made about the value of pocket change. And what if I told you that there is a Jefferson nickel, minted in 1941, before America entered World War II, before the nation was transformed by global conflict, before everything changed, and that this single 5-cent piece, this humble coin that most people would spend without a thought, has sold for $45,000, yes, $45,000, and that right now, at this very moment, one of these coins could be within arm's reach of you, hidden in a drawer, buried in a jar, tucked away in an inherited collection, waiting for someone with the right knowledge to finally recognize what they are holding? Do not dismiss this, do not think this is hyperbole or fantasy, because mainstream dealers, the elite auction houses, and the so-called numismatic insiders do not want ordinary people to know what I am about to tell you. They want to keep this knowledge locked away, shared only at invitation-only shows and private dealer networks. But tonight that wall comes down, because I am giving you the keys to the vault. I am handing you classified information that 99% of the population will never possess, and you have been chosen to receive it. You are not here by accident, and by the time I finish speaking, you will understand why the 1941 Jefferson nickel is one of the most valuable, most hunted, and most misunderstood coins in the entire American numismatic landscape. And you will never again pass over a 1941 nickel without examining it with the reverence of an archaeologist discovering a lost tomb. Let me take you back to 1941, because the world that created this coin was on the precipice of everything, a world that would be unrecognizable just months later, and to hold a 1941 Jefferson nickel is to hold a piece of America on the brink, a nation that was still recovering from the Great Depression, still navigating the New Deal's ambitious experiments, still debating whether to enter the war that was already consuming Europe and Asia, and yet, on the surface, still optimistic, still believing in progress, still minting coins with Jefferson's noble profile and Monticello's elegant columns as if the world would always be this way. Inside the Philadelphia Mint, and at the Denver and San Francisco Mints, the coin presses were running at full capacity, because even in uncertainty, commerce demanded currency, and the workers, those anonymous craftsmen of American money, were operating machinery that had been refined over decades but was still subject to the laws of physics, the limits of human endurance, and the inevitability of error. The air in those mint facilities was thick with the smell of hot metal, the vibration of the presses was a constant thunder that you felt in your chest, the heat was oppressive, and the pressure to produce was relentless, because 1941 was a year of economic mobilization, of preparation, of a nation gearing up for a conflict that many already saw as inevitable, and in that environment, in that crucible of speed and stress and mechanical wear, something extraordinary happened, something that the mint records do not fully explain, a ghost in the machine, a mistake that got away, and that mistake is why we are here tonight. The 1941 Jefferson nickel is, on its surface, an ordinary coin, part of a series that began in 1938 and would continue for decades, featuring Thomas Jefferson on the obverse, designed by Felix Schlag, and Monticello on the reverse, but beneath that familiar surface lies a universe of varieties, errors, and anomalies that have made this pre-war date one of the most exciting and valuable hunting grounds for collectors who know the secrets, and tonight, you are going to learn those secrets, you are going to see with new eyes, and you are going to understand why a 5-cent piece from 1941 can be worth more than a luxury car. Let us begin our forensic examination with the most famous and valuable variety of the 1941 Jefferson nickel, the doubled die obverse, and I need you to understand exactly what this means, because there is confusion in the market, there are fakes, there are misunderstandings, and if you are going to hunt for treasure, you need to hunt with precision. A true doubled die obverse is created during the die-making process, when the hub, which carries the master design, impresses the working die multiple times at slightly different angles, and this working die, now carrying a doubled image, then strikes coins that show this doubling in sharp, clear, fully formed secondary images, and this is not machine doubling, which is flat, shelf-like, and worthless, but rather true hub doubling that creates rounded, distinct, separate impressions of the design elements. When you examine your 1941 nickel under a jeweler's loupe, and I insist on at least 10 power magnification, preferably a triplet lens for maximum clarity, you need to focus first on the date 1941, on the letters of liberty, and on the motto, "In God We Trust," and what you are looking for is a clear secondary image that is offset from the primary, a ghostly twin that follows the contours of the original, and on the most dramatic 1941 doubled die varieties, this doubling is so pronounced that it can be seen with the naked eye when you tilt the coin under good light, and under magnification, it will send chills down your spine, because you will see two dates, two liberties, two mottos, overlapping in a way that defies the precision we expect from the mint, and that visual evidence is worth thousands, tens of thousands, to the right collector. But that is just the beginning, because the 1941 nickel is also famous for repunched mint marks, particularly on the 1941D and 1941S issues, where the mint mark was applied to the working die using a hand punch, and if that punch slipped, or if the die moved between impressions, or if the worker struck it twice to ensure depth, the result is a repunched mint mark, an RPM, where you can see a shadow, a ghost, a secondary impression of the D or S slightly offset from the primary, and under magnification, these RPMs can be breathtaking, miniature dramas of human error frozen in steel, and collectors have paid enormous premiums for dramatic 1941 RPMs, especially when the repunching is clear, dramatic, and visually appealing. Now, while you are examining the reverse of your 1941 nickel, you must pay obsessive attention to the steps of Monticello, because this is where the concept of full steps separates the ordinary from the extraordinary, and I cannot overstate how critical this is to value. The steps on the front of the Monticello building, all 6 of them, are rarely fully struck on Jefferson nickels, because the design is intricate, the relief is high, and the dies work quickly, but on a small percentage of 1941 nickels, struck with fresh dies under perfect conditions, all 6 steps are fully separated, fully detailed, and fully visible, and this full steps designation, applied only by PCGS and NGC after rigorous examination, transforms an already valuable coin into a premium treasure. A 1941 Jefferson nickel in MS-64 without full steps might be worth $50 or $60, a nice premium over face value, But the same coin in MS-64 with full steps could be worth 500, 1,000, or more, and if you escalate to MS-65 or MS-66 with full steps, you are entering the realm of serious money, because registry set collectors, those competitive enthusiasts who build the finest possible sets and compete for recognition in the PCGS and NGC registry programs, will pay virtually anything to acquire the finest known examples, and a 1941 nickel with full steps in MS-66 or higher is a trophy coin, a centerpiece, a piece that defines a collection. But wait, because what I am about to tell you next will make your jaw drop, and it concerns errors that most collectors never even consider, errors that represent the absolute pinnacle of mint mistake collecting. The 1941 Jefferson nickel, like all coins of its era, was subject to wrong planchet strikes, off-metal strikes, and other dramatic errors that occur when the wrong blank enters the coining press, and while these are rare, they are not impossible, they have been found, and they have sold for staggering sums. Imagine a 1941 nickel struck on a cent planchet, a coin that would be slightly smaller than a normal nickel, noticeably lighter at around 3 grams instead of 5, and copper-colored instead of the silvery appearance of the standard copper-nickel composition. Or imagine a 1941 nickel struck on a dime planchet, smaller, lighter, with the silvery white appearance of a dime, or even more exotic, a 1941 nickel struck on a foreign planchet, perhaps from a coinage contract for another country, a coin that would be completely wrong in every measurable way, and each of these wrong planchet errors, if authenticated by PCGS or NGC, can be worth 5 figures, 10 figures, or more, because they are the ultimate min errors, coins that were never supposed to exist, freaks of the manufacturing process that somehow escaped every layer of quality control and made their way into circulation. I also need you to examine your 1941 nickel for die chips and die cracks, because while these may seem minor, a dramatic die chip, especially one that creates a recognizable shape or that appears in a significant location like Jefferson's eye, his cheek, the hairline, or the columns of Monticello, can add substantial premium, and a retained cud, or a piece of the die breaks away but remains attached, creating a raised, featureless area on the coin, is one of the most visually arresting errors in numismatics, and collectors will pay significant premiums for cuds that are dramatic, well-positioned, and that alter the design in interesting ways. Now, let us talk about the kind of money that redefines what a nickel can be, because the exact coin value provided for the 1941 5 cent is $45,000, and yes, you heard that right, that is not a typo, that is not a number I pulled from thin air, that is a real, documented, market-proven value that a 1941 Jefferson nickel with the right combination of grade, variety, and condition has commanded, and let me put that in perspective for you in a way that will make you understand the magnitude of what we are discussing. $45,000 is a down payment on a house in most American markets, it is a brand new luxury car, it is a year of financial breathing room, it is a college education, it is a dream vacation, it is life-changing money from a single piece of copper-nickel alloy that measures barely 3/4 of an inch in diameter and weighs 5 grams, and yet, that same coin, in the right hands, with the right knowledge, is worth more than many people earn in a year, more than some cars cost, more than some houses cost in certain markets, and all of it from a coin that was designed to be spent, to be lost, to be forgotten, to be thrown into a vending machine for a candy bar. Heritage Auctions, the most powerful name in numismatic sales, has handled 1941 Jefferson nickels that have achieved prices that made headlines in the collecting community, and Stacksbauer's, another giant of the auction world, has seen bidding wars erupt over high-grade, fully attributed 1941 varieties, with collectors who understand population reports, who compete for top pop status, who build registry sets that are judged and ranked against the finest collections in the world, driving prices to levels that seem almost unreal for a 5-cent piece. When a coin achieves top pop status in the PCGS or NGC population reports, meaning it is the finest known example or one of only a handful at that grade, it becomes more than a coin, it becomes a trophy, a status symbol, a piece that says to the entire numismatic community, I have something that almost nobody else can acquire, and that exclusivity, that rarity, that unattainability, is what drives the market to $45,000 and beyond, because there are collectors for whom money is no object, for whom the pursuit of perfection is an obsession, and for whom a 1941 Jefferson nickel in MS-66 with full steps and a dramatic doubled die is the missing piece of a puzzle they have spent years assembling. I want to tell you a story that I carry with me every day, that reminds me why this work matters, why this knowledge must be shared, and why you, sitting there right now, need to take this seriously. There was a man in Texas, a retired mechanic who had inherited his father's toolbox, a heavy, rusted, beaten thing that had sat in a garage for 30 years, and when he finally decided to clean it out, to sell what he could and discard the rest, he found a tobacco tin in the bottom drawer, a tin that rattled when he shook it, and inside, wrapped in a scrap of oily cloth, were 17 Jefferson nickels, all dated 1941, that his father had apparently set aside decades ago for no reason other. Then they were shiny, they were new, they were pretty, and that mechanic, not knowing anything about coins, almost took them to a pawn shop for a quick $20, but something made him pause, something made him search online, something led him to a video like this one, and he spent a week with a magnifying glass, examining each of those 17 coins, and on the 14th one, he found it. A 1941 D with a doubled die obverse so dramatic that the date looked like it had been stamped twice. And when he sent it to PCGS for grading, it came back MS-65 with the variety attributed in full steps designated, and that coin, that single nickel that had sat in a tobacco tin in a rusty toolbox for 3 decades, sold at auction for over $30,000, money that paid off his mortgage, money that allowed him to retire comfortably, money that changed his life, and he wrote to me afterward with a photograph of the empty tobacco tin and a note that said, "I almost threw this away." Do not be the person who throws it away, do not be the person who assumes that old nickels are just old nickels, because the difference between 5 cents and $45,000 is not luck, it is not chance, it is knowledge, and you now have that knowledge, and your mission starts right now. Here is your battle plan, and I want you to follow it with military precision, because deviation, carelessness, or impatience can cost you everything. Step 1. Assemble every 1941 Jefferson nickel you can find, search your change, your collections, your inherited items, your garage sale finds, your estate sale purchases, and separate them by mint mark, because the Philadelphia issue has no mint mark, the Denver issue carries a D, and the San Francisco issue carries an S, and each mint has its own varieties, its own rarities, its own potential for staggering value. Step 2. Equip yourself with the proper tools, and do not compromise here, because a proper examination requires a jeweler's loupe with at least 10 power magnification, a triplet lens for optical clarity, a digital scale accurate to 1/100th of a gram, a good desk lamp with a daylight spectrum bulb that shows true color and detail, and protective coin holders or capsules to prevent damage. Step 3. Examine each coin methodically, starting with the obverse, checking for doubled die varieties in the date, the lettering, and the motto, then flipping to the reverse to examine the mint mark for repunching, then studying the steps of Monticello for full steps potential, then scanning the entire surface for die chips, die cracks, cuts, and any anomaly that does not belong. Step 4. Weigh every candidate, because the standard weight is 5 grams, and any significant deviation could indicate a wrong planchet or off metal strike, and if you find a 1941 nickel that weighs 3 grams, 4 grams, or anything other than 5, you must stop and seek professional evaluation immediately. Step 5. If you find a coin that excites you, that shows clear evidence of a valuable variety or error, do not clean it, never clean it, because cleaning is the fastest way to destroy value. It removes the original mint luster, it creates hairlines and scratches that professional graders will detect and penalize severely, and it can turn a $45,000 coin into a $4,000 coin or worse. Handle the coin by its edges only, never touch the surface with your fingers, because the oils and acids in your skin can cause irreversible damage, and place it in a protective holder immediately, keeping it away from moisture, heat, PVC plastics, and any environment that could compromise its condition. Step 6. Submit your find to PCGS or NGC for professional grading and attribution, because certification is the gateway to maximum value. It provides authentication that the market trusts, a grade that establishes condition, and variety attribution that identifies exactly what you have, and without this certification, you are selling a story, but with it, you are selling a verified, encapsulated, guaranteed treasure. A raw 1941 doubled die nickel might bring a few $100s from an interested dealer, but the same coin in a PCGS or NGC holder, graded and attributed, can command thousands, tens of thousands, and that difference is the difference between a nice anecdote and a life-altering event. Step 7. Once you hold that graded coin, that certified treasure, do not sell it to the first pawn shop that waves cash at you, do not list it on eBay for a quick $100, do not let a local dealer tell you it is common or that the market is soft, because you will be robbed, you will be cheated, and you will walk away with a fraction of what you deserve. Instead, contact Heritage Auctions or Stacksbowers, the two premier auction houses I have referenced throughout this presentation, because they have the numismatic expertise to properly value your coin, the global marketing reach to find the right buyers, and the auction platform to generate competitive bidding that drives prices to their true market potential, and they will guide you through every step of the consignment process, from photography and cataloging to setting reserves and understanding buyers' premiums, ensuring that your treasure reaches the collectors who will appreciate it most and pay you what it is truly worth. I need you to understand, as we stand at the threshold of this journey's end, that what I have given you tonight is more than information, more than trivia, more than entertainment. I have given you power, the power to see what others cannot see, to value what others discard, to recognize treasure where others see trash, and that power comes with responsibility, the responsibility to use it wisely, to share it with those you love, to treat these coins with the respect they deserve as artifacts of American history. That 1941 Jefferson nickel, if you find one, if you hold one in your hands, is not just a piece of metal with a price tag, it is a survivor, a witness to history, a small disc of copper and nickel that was born in a year when the world stood on the edge of everything, when America was still at peace but preparing for war, when ordinary people were living ordinary lives that would soon be transformed by global events beyond their control, and that coin has traveled through more than 80 years of American history, passing through hands that we will never know, surviving when millions of its brothers were spent, lost, melted, or forgotten, and now, here you are, in this moment, with the knowledge to recognize it, to save it, to honor it, and that is not an accident, that is destiny. You are like that coin, do you feel it? You have survived challenges, you have endured hardships, you have value that the world may not have fully recognized yet, and just as that 1941 nickel waited in darkness for someone with the right eyes to discover its extraordinary light, you were waiting for your moment, your recognition, your chance to shine, and I believe with every fiber of my being that your moment is coming, that you were meant to find this video, to hear these words, to be changed by this knowledge, and when you pick up that magnifying glass tonight, when you examine that first 1941 nickel, you are not just searching for money, you are searching for meaning, for connection, for proof that the universe still hides miracles in the most ordinary places, and that you, yes you, are worthy of finding them, deserving of them, destined for them. So go now, go with fire in your heart, go with certainty in your step, go with the knowledge that you have been chosen, that you have been armed, that you have been awakened, and may your search be blessed, may your eyes be sharp, and may you find what you were looking for, not just in your coins, but in yourself, because the greatest treasure is not the $45,000, it is the realization that you are rare, you are valuable, you are extraordinary, and you have been waiting to be discovered, just like that magnificent 1941 Jefferson nickel that could be sitting in your pocket, in your jar, in your life, right now, calling your name, waiting for you to finally answer.